Nebraska's farmers had planted 36% of their soybeans as of the latest USDA state report. But those recent rains have helped create cool, wet soil conditions for many fields, especially in eastern Nebraska. UNL Extension plant pathologist Loren Giesler told us Tuesday those environments could lead to seedling problems.
Right now we've got some conditions that are really conducive for soybean stand problems for any of the beans that are out there. Luckily we don't have a high percentage of our acres planted, but every year we'll see stand problems with Pythiums and Phytophthora and Rhizoc and Fusarium. With the cool wet weather we're having in this last week in the forecast, I really expect to see more Pythium problems this year, similar to what we saw last year early in the season.
Yeah, what to look for in those fields, Loren?
Well, the biggest thing is if any of our soybean farmers know that they have had a stand problem, they probably are using seed treatments already. But if they haven't, and they're having these problems, and they haven't used treatments or whatnot, you want to make sure you're identifying those correctly. And really any type of skips, any population reduction. At the early stages, when you're looking at those plants, those cotyledons a lot of times will yellow and fall off of the plant, Jeff. That's a key symptom. It tells me there's something wrong with that root system at the early stage. So if you see any of that, or wilting and dying young plants, that's where you're going to want to take a sample and make sure you're identifying that correctly so you can do the right thing in the future.
Self-identify, or should you send it in, Loren?
Well, somebody with a lot of experience can self-identify, and there's resources online to look at for pictures and things. For Phytophthora is easy. Some of the other ones are much more difficult. So really, if anyone's having problems with this, I'd really recommend take a sample. If they haven't had the field identified in the past and they don't know what the problem is, send that to the Plant-Based Diagnostic Clinic. They can get that identified easy, and then they know what to do in the future.
You said we might see some Pythium this year just like last year, but what about Phytophthora?
Phytophthora really needs soil temperatures above 60 degrees. So when we're looking at soils right now, we've got some in the 60s, but a lot of parts in the state we're still less than that. So when we're above 60 degrees and we're wet, we see more Phytophthora. When we're below 60, we see more Pythium. So that's why I'm saying with the cool front we're in right now and the rains that are delivering some cool water, we're going to see more Pythium probably. So that's going to be the key that we're going to be looking at.
And Rhizoctonia?
Rhizoctonia we usually see when we warm up some. We get some stress on the field in a well-drained field, sand or something where we've got well-drained conditions and warm conditions. So I don't expect to see a lot of Rhizoc right now. Maybe a couple weeks now, hopefully we'll warm up and then we might see some of that.
If you're needing to replant, would that be a situation where you would use a seed treatment again?
Well, at this point right now, Jeff, if we have a grower that's going to replant, as cool as the soil temperatures are, if they've had any problem, I would sure use a seed treatment fungicide in that field. As we warm up, sometimes we're at 65, 70 degree soil temperatures, and then we're looking at replant. Not quite as critical in that situation, especially if we don't have a big rain forecasted. But again, just like so many of our other diseases, these things are all going to be active based on when conditions are conducive and cooler temperatures that slow seedlings and their emergence and make them more susceptible, and wet conditions really make it favorable.
Are these things that you want to keep in mind either next year or in 2 years when you plant soybeans in this field again?
Absolutely. You always want to keep a record book. That's your best management program. So if you get that identified correctly, or if you know what it is and you see that, keeping a note on that so you're using the right treatments and working on that field correctly in the future for management.
You can find information on submitting field samples to UNL's Plant and Pest Diagnostic Clinic through a link on the Market Journal homepage. You can also find a link there to a CropWatch article on early season flooding impacts on soybean survival.